Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Dog Whisperer. I have a very special guest on with me today, Eddie Bonner, who is running for the state assembly here in New Jersey in the first legislative district. It's great to have you, Eddie.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful to interview another legislative candidate, and I want to explain a little bit about what's going on here in New Jersey again, in case we have any listeners who are not from the state. This is our state midterms, which means that our governor's race is not happening, but we do have state senate and assembly. And before we continue, I think that we all should extend our thoughts and prayers to the family of our Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who sadly passed away yesterday or 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
2 days ago, yeah, it was 2 days ago. I'm still in shock about that. So we extend our thoughts and prayers to Lieutenant Governor Oliver's family. So um, you are running in the first legislative district in South Jersey as an assembly candidate, and this is a district that was previously held by Democrats until 2019. In fact, the state senator for that district was Jeff Andrew, who is now the Republican congressman who famously flip-flopped. And it's been in Republican hands for quite some time now. Why do you think it flipped from blue to red after over 10 years?
Democrats, and I'm a Democrat through and through, will not come out and vote. That's the biggest problem. We can sugarcoat it. We can go around the mulberry bush. It comes down to the fact that we as Democrats will not come out in the numbers that we have and vote. We have to vote.
Well, I had Tim Alexander on about a couple weeks ago, and he said that basically Tim said that Democrats are very good at protesting, but we got to protest at that ballot box. So
Exactly.
why do you think there's such a reluctance for Why is it that so many Democrats organize protests and marches, which is all good, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't voice your opinion. I mean, we've had people who have fought and died for our rights of votes.
See, it's funny you would say that because the 90, in my opinion, the majority of Democrats are people of color.
Mhm.
And I question them, why do you not vote, but you'll protest? They said, well, does my vote really count? Why should I vote? And you try to explain to them the steps that were taken for us to have the right to vote, but some of them just still don't get it. They'll protest because it's raining in one spot, not the other, but they will not hit those polls in the same numbers. And until we can figure out how to get them there, we're going to be in trouble. We have to get them to the polls. We have to turn this back blue.
Well,
They're, they're, they are really destroying our rights because we won't vote.
Tim Alexander, we had a great launch event, which you and I were both in attendance for yesterday in Millville. And he said that the polls are showing that Latinos, when they're fed up with Democratic politics, will vote for Republicans, but the Black community, if they're fed up with Democrats, just won't vote at all. Why do you think that there is? Why do you think the Latinos will vote Republican, but not the Black community when they're not happy with the Democratic status quo?
From talking to quite a few of them since I decided to run, I mean, we've had conversations, but we actually had conversations now. And they said it doesn't matter. And I'm trying to impress upon them it does matter whether you vote or not. Your one vote could make a big difference. And that's the message I impress upon them, especially our 18 to 28-year-olds. I met one at Millville's National Night Out. Do you vote? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, I don't know. I said, do you own a home? Yes. Are they both your children? Yes. Then you should vote. Because if you don't, the future is going to be very bleak for your two children. He took my card, took a voter registration form.
Great.
28 years old, but he never voted in his none of his adult life.
It's never too late to start, and that's why it's so important that we have candidates such as yourself who, one by one, let people know that there is a big reason to participate in the system. It's crucial. It's critical.
Yes, it is.
And we do have some problems because, and I don't mean to regurgitate memes, but if the votes didn't count, there wouldn't be certain states that are trying to ban things like souls to the polls or early voting on Sunday and all these other things that the Republicans are trying to do to suppress the votes. I mean, I'm not opposed to voter ID in theory, but I think the way that some Republican states have implemented it is targeted to disenfranchise minority voters. For example, in North Dakota, there was a law that was passed that said that you need an ID to vote, but your ID needed to have a conventional address. The problem is a lot of the Native American reservations, their driver's licenses don't consist of that aspect on the license. You can prove who you are, but the address, it's a little bit of a different situation. So I think that was a way to indirectly or directly tell the Native Americans in North Dakota, stay out of our elections.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm looking at. I was just reading an article. I believe it was Arizona, where they wanted to hand count votes, and they realized it's not cost effective. They made 46 mistakes in all those elections, and they just couldn't do it. So my thing is, you want to hand count because you want to throw out votes, which is a form of voter suppression. They realized they made mistakes in that 2020 election, and there actually were more people that voted Democrat than Republican.
Right.
So I agree with you that voter suppression, they guise it as, oh, we want to make sure it's you, or we want to make sure you live here, which I think is wrong. That's voter suppression, in my opinion.
And your district is the bottom, is like the most south of New Jersey. It's very deep South Jersey. You've got a lot of it's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of very Republican white areas, and there are also a lot of Democratic Black and Latino areas. And it seems like that there's a lot of differences between the communities down there. The whites, it seems, a lot of the white people are very much in favor of the GOP. I mean, it's kind of a Trumpian area, and the black voters are kind of they're Democrats, but they're kind of well, not disenfranchised, but they're kind of disinterested. Some of them, based on some of the phone calls that I had when I was working for Tim Alexander, a lot of people didn't even know there was an election going on.
Well, see, that's the thing, and you hit it on the head. They are disinterested because they feel as though their votes don't count and their voices aren't being heard. And that's another reason why I'm going to make everybody's voice heard. I'm one of those people. How would they say it? I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. But you have to be heard, and I was heard. But I don't know, from the time I grew up to now, I don't know what happened. So we have to be their voice, and I'm going to be the people's voice. Politicians forget you're elected at the will of the people. You serve the people, and they forget that. And this is why they feel left out, because I put you there, and now you do nothing for me. You got to be reachable. You have to be attainable. You can't make everything, and if you do, you can't listen to everything. That's why you take someone with you. Take these notes. You sit back and you listen. You let them vent. Okay, this problem is in this area. This problem's in that area. Now they're interested because you're interested. You're listening to them, and that's what people want. They want to be heard.
Absolutely. Let's get into your background. Before you ran for office, what did you do, and what were some of the experiences that you had or events in your life that really shaped your politics and the way that you're running your campaign right now?
The crazy thing is, I went to school to be a draftsman back in 1982, and I got pulled over. It was me and very good friend of mine who's out in Arizona, a white guy, and this officer went up one side of me and down the other. But when he talked to my buddy, totally different tone. Well, I started complaining. My late father says, you're going to complain and you're going to do something about it. So I put the drafting to the side and I went to the police academy. I went there to make a difference. And I know I made a difference in my little hometown of Bridgeton, New Jersey. I know I made a difference. And I want to continue to make a difference. I have no problem with speaking my mind. I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but if they hurt, then I don't know what to tell you. You have to speak your mind. You have to. Public service is just what it is. You're a servant to the public. And that's what politics are about. As politicians, you serve the public. They've gotten away from that. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to do my best anyway.
So how long were you a police officer for in the Bridgeton Police Department?
I was a police officer from 1986 to 1998, and I got hurt. So I went out on a medical disability.
And how did the profession change during the 12 years that you were involved in law enforcement?
My 12 years were tumultuous. My mouth, I couldn't keep it shut. When you're wrong, you're wrong. That's just how I feel. Well, at that time, the powers to be did not see it that way. I'm the police, I do what I want. No, you can't. And I didn't care if you were sky blue pink. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, I fought for you. And that kind of got me in trouble. So I love my career, but I had a tumultuous career as far as the administration is concerned. But my job was to help people. And that's what I did. And I know I did it very well.
How do you think law enforcement today is different from when you were on the job?
Police officers can't be police officers anymore. They're lumped in one basket. Every profession that you have one bad apple. It's just like you're doing a podcast. So, but the guy 3 states over is also doing a podcast, and he's just being arrogant and ignorant. I can't lump you in the same category as I lump him. And that's what they're doing to law enforcement. But I feel as though it's being done to satisfy somebody's agenda. You hired them for a reason. Every profession has a bad apple. You have to weed them out. You have to get rid of them. You have to make them accountable. I support law enforcement. I also feel as though that bad apple needs to be held accountable.
So why do you think that there are some people on the far left who will use the term ACAB, which stands for all cops are, and then the B word stands for bastard? Like, why do you think there's that fringe element on the left that is so anti law enforcement?
As far as the minority community, I can at first hand tell you it's because they're treated. I was treated that way when a lot of them didn't even know I was an officer. When they found out, their attitude changed. So it's people don't want to admit it. I tell the truth. There is a disparity in the way the law is enforced with certain people.
Hmm.
I hate to say it that way, but it's the truth. Where I live now, we have no issues. You never see a police officer. Where I moved from, nothing but issues. But they made, just my opinion, from being a police officer, most police officers make their own problems. You go in with that attitude. No, you go in to de-escalate. Now, and if you can't, you have to do your job. But your primary focus is to de-escalate and find out what's going on. The bad apple gets in and he gets the Superman syndrome, and then all hell breaks loose. Can't have that.
Right, because a lot of the people who I've spoken with who are anti-cop are not actually people in the black community or the Latino community. They're actually white people. So, I mean, it's not always what people would think.
Most people are anti-police officer until they need one.
Right.
When
Exactly.
you need them, they're the greatest thing next to sliced bread.
Hmm. And good
Right.
policing is it's really valuable. And
We have to get back to community policing. I did that. I parked my car in probably the worst neighborhood in Bridgeton, and we walked. My partner and I, we walked. We got to know the communities, and that's what's happening. The police officers don't know the people in the community anymore because they've gotten away from community policing. There are some very, very good men and women that wear that blue uniform. Their hearts are in the right places. Their minds are in the right places. They go there to do the job that they swore to do. You got one bad apple that gives them a bad name.
what do you think of the Black Lives Matter movement?
I don't agree with some of their philosophies. I just don't. Some things could be done differently that they do or they don't do. I'm not going to bash them because Black Lives Matter, because nobody, in all honesty, in my whole 59 and a half years of living, I seen for myself where they could most people could care less about people of color. What people fail to realize, and I will say it, and I hope nobody takes it the wrong way, and if they do, God bless them. This country was built on the backs of people of color. Period. 99.9% of your inventions came from a person of color, but they get no credit for it. And I can go back in history because I like history. I can go back to the 1950s when they were building the developments, and in the clause, well, a black man can't live here. There were those types of things,
Hmm.
and that's wrong. And that still happens today. My neighbor across the street, God bless him, he passed away a few years ago. Our houses are identical. They were appraised $20,000 different, and they're identical. So I reported that. But that's what happens. You have certain people that they're still in that. What's I don't want to sound facetious. I don't want to sound nasty. They're still in that master slave mentality,
Hmm.
and we teach that. We got to get away from that. We're teaching our kids that. If you watch kids, they can be 87 different colors. They all get along.
Hmm.
We teach them hate. We teach that. If we can love like children, be the greatest country in the world.
It's all taught. You're absolutely right.
We teach it.
So, what are your top priorities for when you get to the state legislature?
I'm big on law enforcement, and I'm very, very big on education, because without the education, we're lost. If we can't get our people, and I mean all of our people, educated, that's another reason why they don't vote, because they don't understand it, because they're not educated. Education is a big, big thing. But we have taken the power to teach and the power to discipline away from the educators. We have to give it back. We have to. Or we're going to be, I'm getting older. In 2 years, by New Jersey's laws, I'm considered a senior citizen. I'll be 62. So I got to rely on someone that's undisciplined and uneducated to look out for me. No, I don't want that. We need to give educators back the authority and power that they used to have. I'm big, as you can see, I even finished the other topics. I'm very big on education, very big. And the senior rights, the women's rights. I have a mother, I have a sister, I have a wife, I have daughters, I have granddaughters. I'm a man. I cannot tell a woman what to do with her body. Whether I agree or disagree, it's still her body. That's her right. Who am I to take it from her?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. What are your thoughts on why do you think that educators, it seems, have had their hands tied, especially by parents who are very quick to blame the school, the principal, the teacher when their kid does something wrong? Because I have educators in my family, and what you're saying is absolutely correct.
That stems from, like I said, they took the authority to discipline those kids, and they took the authority to teach and educate those children. They took it from them because somebody complained. Well, little Johnny, you made him stand in the corner for 5 minutes. You don't say the other part where little Johnny hit the little girl on the head with a stapler. That's the part they leave out. This is why I say they take the right for educators to educate and discipline. They took it away from them. They took it away. Well, you can't make my child stand it. If parents took the time, as they do when there's proms and parties, to go all out with that and take the same energy to discipline and make their kids learn, we have a better world. Society at large would be better. Take that same energy, you discipline that child. There's a difference between discipline and abuse, a big difference. Discipline that kid, put that same energy into his education. Explain it to him. Be parents, stop being their friends.
Well, Bill Maher
Ed-
said that it's the "Hey Buddy" generation.
right. Educators are an integral part of the United States. They're an integral part of the world. Without them, we have nothing. Nothing. Let them teach. Give them back their authority to teach and discipline in that classroom.
What are some of your ideas for um, updating education and law enforcement? Basically, how to improve the systems and the systems so that they work better for everyone involved.
The law enforcement aspect, because that's who I am, you have to let police officers do their job. What we have as law enforcement is called qualified immunity. I'm pretty sure you know what that is. Well,
Mhm.
he was actually trying to do his job. And for the most part, most law enforcement personnel do that. But you have that one, he doesn't do that. He should not be able to stand under the guise of qualified immunity. He should be held accountable when he violates someone's rights. He should be held accountable. He should be made to pay. Law enforcement is not above the law. Period. We took an oath, and you're supposed to stand on that oath and do what you swore you would do. That's how I feel, and I'll say that to any law enforcement because I'm a police officer through and through. I'll be a police officer until I die
When you say
because
this,
that's how people see me.
when you say this to your law enforcement friends, how do they react?
For the most part, they all know me. They know I don't bite my tongue. I get maybe one or two that they'll frown up and get upset, but like I tell them, if you throw a rock in a pack of dogs, the one that hollers is the one you hit.
Why do
You're
you
the one violating someone's rights. That's why you're upset.
why do you think that a lot of members of the law enforcement community, and I kind of understand why, but why do you think that they are clinging very hard to the Republican side, especially since in our state the Republican governors have not exactly been very good to police officers? And I remember speaking to a corrections officer, a former corrections officer, who said that Governor Whitman did not actually allow COs to have stab-proof vests until a corrections officer was stabbed fatally at Rawway Prison, and then she gave it to him. Like, why Republicans have not been very good at law enforcement, especially on a state level. So what's the deal with that?
From what I see in my standpoint, my opinion alone, they are reactive instead of proactive. They want to react after it happened. But if you do something before it happens, it's less costly. You don't have the blowback, and you have happy employees. Honestly, law enforcement they're frustrated because something has to literally happen to one of them before they can do something or before they can get any funding. That's wrong. That's not how you govern. Be proactive. Reactive costs a lot of money because lawsuits are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
So just to
Give
clarify,
them back.
oh,
You got
continue.
to give them back their authority. You have to give it back. They've stripped them to satisfy an agenda and to get votes. They stripped them. They have to literally get their head knocked off before they can retaliate. That's wrong.
Hmm. What do you think of Mayor Adams in New York City?
I don't know much about him. I haven't really studied him, so I can't comment.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So just to be clear, do you support ending qualified immunity in New Jersey?
Don't support that because there's good officers and they're doing their job, and without it, they'll be prosecuted because there are a lot of them are being prosecuted unfairly now. It's the officer that you know, and you have the evidence, you have the proof that he violated those rights and he did it intentionally. He should not or she should not have that umbrella of qualified immunity. They should not have it. They should be held accountable. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ahead. I'm getting a little excited. They should not have it because they are wrong and they knew they were wrong when they did it.
Well, I love your passion, and that's one of the reasons why you and your team have my undying support, to paraphrase Jeff Andrew. um, Real quickly, what do you what do you how would you campaign, because this is a diverse district? Cumberland County as a whole is pretty Democratic. Cape May County is really Republican. How would you convince some of those Republican voters in Cape May County to trust you and your team?
The first off, and I've been to Cape May County and I'm on my way back again. You can't promise something you cannot deliver. That's the first and foremost. A lot of politicians on both sides, they promise things they cannot deliver. And I've had this conversation. I actually had this conversation in Avalon. I can't promise you anything, but together we can make some things happen. I talk to people. I don't like phones. I hate phones, be honest with you, but you have to have them. I'd rather talk to you in person. If I can see your eyes, I can see your soul. My eyes don't lie. I'm going to tell you the truth. Now it's up to you to believe it. But if I'm talking to you and you're a Republican through and through. I'm going to tell you this is what we can do, not what I can do. We have to do this. And this is how we can get it done. I'm hands on, I'm easily accessible, and I'm straight up. I can only tell them how I am. And I don't care if you're white, black, purple, or sky blue, pink. If you're right, you're right.
Who are some of your political role models?
Honestly, I don't have any. I I like to be me. I judge people for who they are. If you're I'm going to use Donald Trump. I think he's a nut. I really do. But he has said some things that made a lot of sense.
Mhm.
He really has. So I'm the type of person I have to see, hear you, and watch you. So I have no role models. I watch people. I watch them very closely.
I have to ask, I'm just curious, and I don't entirely disagree, but what do you think Donald Trump said that made some sense or resonated with you?
I have no problem at all with people coming into this country. My problem is, and I agree with him, they have to come legally.
Right.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I really do.
Mhm.
We have a problem. They come illegally and we give them the world. But what about our homeless that we have? They're here. They're citizens. They were
Right.
born here. We do nothing for them. That's where I say it's wrong. I have no problem with anybody coming to the country. This country is built on immigrants. Everybody here is an immigrant,
Mhm.
but that they came legally. You have to come legally. That's
And
just my opinion.
I agree with you 1,000%, but what you're saying is gonna be controversial among some
Sure.
Democrats, even though it wasn't even 30 or it wasn't even 30 years ago that Bill Clinton, when he was president, said the same exact thing that you're saying. Why do you think
And
it's
it's
so
true.
controversial in the Democratic Party?
Most Democrats have a bleeding heart,
Mhm.
but they have the bleeding heart for everybody but their own, if that's
Mhm.
the correct way of putting it.
Right.
You have to take care of home before you can take care of somebody outside. So they have to come legally. They put a strain on the system when they come illegally. And
Right.
it's wrong. It's wrong to us as taxpayers. It's wrong. I can't say it any other way. It is wrong.
I
And it's
remember.
controversial, and I'm going to get backlash from it. I'm ready for that. I have very strong shoulders. I'm ready for it because I can justify that point. I
Well,
can justify that point.
yeah. When I remember in 2019, I applauded 3 Democratic senators who crossed the aisle to vote with Republicans that basically on a bill that basically said, if you come to the country looking for asylum and we find that you do not have a valid asylum claim, you have to go back and wait your
You
turn.
ha- you have to go back.
And people and some progressive Democrats were like were outraged at the Democrats voting with Republicans. I'm like, why? If you don't have a valid asylum claim and you're staying here and we're giving you citizenship, you're flooding the immigration courts and you're making it more difficult for people who probably have more valid claims to get through the process.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. I don't get it anymore.
How many of us can go to another country illegally and they give us whatever we want?
Hmm.
It doesn't happen. Not even Mexico.
Hmm. So, what do you think of the? I mean, it passed a few years ago, but what do you think of our state giving driver's licenses to people who are here illegally?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all.
Hmm.
I do not agree with it.
Are there any? I know you say you don't have any role models, but any politicians that you admire?
I admire one, but I will not call his name because it will start a firestorm like you wouldn't believe.
Okay.
And he's a former sitting president. He's long gone. He's passed away, but I admired him because I loved his economic plan.
And who was that, if you don't mind my asking?
I won't say.
Okay. I had to try. You know, I had to try.
I will not say, but I think he was the greatest to ever do it. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Before we leave, do you have a website or Facebook page for your campaign so my listeners can check you on your team out?
It's actually getting rebuilt. We had to take it down and put it back up, and until it's up, I can't really give it out because there's nothing to see.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, when it's up, I'm going to post it to the Blue Dog Whisperer Facebook page, so that my listeners can take a look at you and your team and see what's going to happen in November.
You will be the first one I give it to.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
Just get out and vote. We're better together. We can't do it alone. We have to do it together.
I I couldn't have said it better myself. So, thank you so much, Eddie Bonner, who's running for the state assembly in the first legislative district. It was a pleasure to have you on.
I appreciate you inviting me. Have a good one.
Good luck.